Good morning, everybody, and apologies for being a little bit late. We're winding up another meeting, some of us. Councilmember Mumm is going to be a little bit late joining us. Councilmember Burke is not available today, and we have several things to talk about. We're going to spend the majority of our time talking about the downtown plan. We're going to get a report from our government affairs manager, Eric Polson, on the state legislative session. And then we're going to do brief touches on the American Recovery Plan resolution and the impact fee ordinance, just to get a touch on them before 2 weeks when they come up. So that is what we're up. But we're not having Sarah Nuss today, right? So on that. Okay, great. All right. So, Mr. Gwynn, if you're there, I'll turn over the screen to you, and we can go from there.
Great. Hello. Yes, I am here. Thank you very much, Council President and Council members. I'm Nathan Gwynn from City of Spokane Planning. The city is co-sponsoring this effort, Spokane Downtown Plan, with the Downtown Spokane Partnership, and we've been coordinating with the planning consultant team framework. So first off, I just have a few of the key elements of what this plan proposes to do. And recognizing this is a legislative effort, there's not so much discussion questions for you right up off the top, but potential discussion topics for your study session. And these topics align with the priority actions in the plan. So we have first, active transportation connections, energizing street life and bringing vitality enhanced use that's accessible to everyone through a variety of strategies. Secondly, reducing impacts of surface parking, so addressing gaps in land use and design and pursuing redevelopment downtown. Bringing arts and culture to the public realm, so activation of streetscape to support cultural uses and developing an updated arts plan. Fourth, transit access and parking management. This really involves improving the system through demand management and aligning the strategies in the 2019 downtown parking study, and also carrying forward the city's existing 2008 downtown plan recommended strategy around this issue. And then finally, programming and activating public spaces. So this relates to expanding the number of events and locations downtown. And so just to give an overview, I'm here to give a brief overview of the Spokane Downtown Plan and the amendment process, highlight some important work, some important issues in the city's approach in this and related work. And the planning team has a short presentation. The planning consultant from Framework will present the goals and vision, and some of the key features of the content. And then the Downtown Spokane Partnership will give a short presentation as co-sponsor. And I'll wrap up our presentation with a staff recommendation, and then we have time for questions. So this draft and related information is posted online at the project webpage shown at the bottom. That's on the city's project webpage. The sub-area plan area is shown. This is centered on the core of downtown, but also contains area on both sides of the river. And this is the regional center recognized in the city's comprehensive plan, which states that downtown should be sustained as a thriving economic, cultural, and social center of the region. So the location of recent planning efforts is also shown here as sub-areas within downtown, and these processes inform this process. The new downtown plan boundary extends east to cover that the entire South University District sub-area that's shown here in blue that was adopted by the city last year. The comprehensive plan provides for a growing and thriving downtown as the regional center, and this specific sub-area specific plan, the Spokane Downtown Plan, exists to give additional detail to the city's comprehensive plan over a long time frame. And this plan will replace the existing downtown plan adopted in 2008 and builds on those accomplishments that were achieved since then, such as preparation for Riverfront Park redevelopment, the University District Gateway Bridge, and Central City Line, as well as private investments. That 2008 plan anticipated, like the plan it replaced, a new update might be needed after 10 years. As part of the comprehensive plan, adopted by amendment and ordinance is an initial sub-area plan. In this case, it replaces the former plan with a new plan and area, as long as the cumulative impacts of the proposed changes are considered. and review is completed under the State Environmental Policy Act, or SEPA. And so to review those comprehensive plan amendment steps, the City Council recognized it as a part of the Plan Commission's work program by resolution. And agency and city department review was conducted, and in this case involved a technical work group. And public comment and feedback was solicited through a public engagement plan, an open house, and other efforts in addition to the SEPA review. And so following the SEPA determination and the Plan Commission's May 12th hearing, the City Council will hold a public hearing with the mayor's decision and effective date 30 days following. So that sums up the process for this item. And now I'd like to turn to look more closely at the public participation and issues identified through that, and take a quick look at the most recent survey. And then I'll pass this on to the consultant. So as a new sub-area plan, the public participation included a public engagement plan that was led by Framework. Also, the team formed a steering committee in addition to that public engagement plan that helped share and guide content over a series of meetings. And additionally, 3 online surveys were conducted around the time of the public workshops, and an additional virtual open house that was inserted to the process schedule to present and receive feedback on the draft plan. And then, of course, in addition, there were the visits to the community assembly and nearby neighborhood councils, and 7 plan commission workshops since the fall of 2019. So through this process, several key themes were identified in the proposed plan. So this is an excerpt from the plan from these interactions with the public during the process. They included improvements to streets and public spaces, parking, addressing surface parking lots and parking design, concerns about homeless conditions downtown, and concerns about public safety, with divergent opinions about how to effectively address homelessness through centralized or decentralized services. And then access to driving, alternatives to driving downtown, and preserving vehicle access on major routes to and from downtown. So these key themes helped form the basis for the plan's vision and goals. And another later addition to the process is the Plan Commission Subcommittee, which was established earlier this year, which issued a report discussing issues and highlighting topics, including in their recommendations a diagram added for active street edges and for the downtown Core 100 zone, which is an area adjacent to Riverfront Park along Spokane Falls Boulevard, including a new option for design performance to explore if the city makes modifications to the code for this zone. It doesn't really define what the suggested option is, but it proposes it for consideration. So turning to the last of the 3 online surveys, this ended last month, using content from the draft. This survey helped confirm that the priority or hot topic items identified in this proposal are important to the community, and that generally strategies contribute to achieving goals. And so in this survey, we find some of the most recent feedback from public participation, and this helped to confirm priorities and find out about concerns that still exist. So the next series of slides are taken from the outreach summary posted on the city's webpage. These review, just reviewing these questions briefly, just to help focus on and help reinforce those hot topics and priority actions for the plan. So question 3 from the survey shown on the left, this combines the respondents that are grouped as green and blue, represented those respondents who believe energizing streets and alleys as active pedestrian and bike-friendly connections are very important or somewhat important. And in this case, more than 300 out of about 400 respondents answered this question. And then fewer answered the yellow or turquoise categories, saying that either it was not important or they weren't sure. So then we see a similar trend. We look across the different topic areas. So question 4 on the right side for reducing impacts from surface parking. Again, most respondents agree it's very or somewhat important to achieve a connected and walkable downtown. And then question 5 for bringing art and culture into the public realm. Most respondents, again, answered that they agree that it's very or somewhat important for achieving a goal of thriving arts, culture, and history. And then question 6 on the right, most agreed, again, very or somewhat important to improve transit access and parking management for downtown residents and employees to achieve a great place to live, work, and play. For question 7 for programming and activating public spaces, most respondents who answered this question again fall into that category categories that will be very important or somewhat important to achieve. Welcoming and engaging public spaces. And then question 8 on the right, strengthening community partnerships. Most respondents again answered this question. Agreed, it's very somewhat important to achieve a well-organized downtown. So those are the particular priority action related questions. And then just turning to the last few general questions that followed the priority actions. The question on the left, question 9, about strategies in general, answers the question that most people answering believe the strategies in general do help achieve community goals. And then question 10, which is on the right, indicates those who answered about changes to better respond to community goals. And about a third of the total participants of the survey, so 741 participants, about a third of those skipped these questions. And of about 500 who answered question 10 on the right, 289 answered yes, areas in the draft should be improved. So that kind of gives an idea of narrowing it down to those who just believe there should be changes to the draft. So finally, this question 11 follows the survey question based on the planning process about improving the draft to better respond to community goals. If yes, please explain. And here we see about 2/3 of the people skip this question, which makes sense because respondents either indicated no to needed changes in the question or skipped that question as well. And then on the right side, this shows the distribution of some of the top categories mentioned in responses. So in looking at different aspects of the data, this helps give us some perspective that although it's the top mentioned category, addressing homeless conditions occurred in 53 or less than a quarter of the people who answered yes about needed changes, or less than 10% of the 741 survey participants overall. And I should mention respondents who identified as property owners, this is a major concern, also residents, more prevalent concern in those groups than if the respondents identified as an employee downtown or a visitor to downtown. So what happens when we look closer comparing the change between the first and last surveys on social and housing issues? On the left, most people in the plan's opening survey in 2019 selected homelessness when asked to select up to 3 challenges facing downtown. With public safety also coming in among the top 3. But by the time of the third survey this year, again, less than 10% of the 741 participants, or 1/4 of the ones who indicated needed changes, mentioned addressing homelessness conditions in particular. And so this corresponds to an evolution during the process of a preliminary strategy directed at concentration of homeless services at the job. And then there was an effort to manage expectations in the draft all along the way for areas where social services interact or intersect with development and plan level guidance for this document. So what did we hear throughout the process? We've heard existing conditions report that occurred in 2020, gave highlights of other communities nationwide, and also reported on the initial focus groups and interactions with the public. We heard that there's a best practice of co-location of services. And some areas of this topic are better addressed in other existing strategic plans that the city interacts with. So turning to the heart of proposed policy content in the plan addressing social services and housing, in the original draft that was before the Plan Commission, what can citizens expect the downtown plan to do? So throughout the process, we heard concerns about addressing homeless conditions downtown, as well as separate concerns with public safety. And throughout the process, the city has responded with considerable time and discussion with Downtown Spokane Partnership, city staff, council members to look closely at the possibilities and best approach without going too far into new policy concerned with operations. So here the city is focused on what causes have a clear connection to the downtown plan and how is it addressing it. So we have a strategy in the live, work, and play for housing that has a direct connection, including new approaches to housing development. There's a clear connection between affordability and support for both people needing shelter and work the city and service providers are doing to address homelessness. So I can report that these strategy areas were reviewed and clarified in refining the plan for measuring the number of units created to track progress for units for all income levels. And for public spaces, programming and crime prevention programs with new measures to track activation and number of events are located in the plan. And finally, in the well-organized coordination with adopted policy, making mention of the regional model and strategic steps, strategic plan that exists for the regional model in terms of strengthening community partnerships without the need for a new policy in this document. And another way the text of this plan, that's another way the text of this plan directs people and resources to the appropriate plan by mentioning it in the appropriate places. That document, the strategic plan to prevent homelessness, is the primary plan for the city's efforts. And so citizens can expect these strategies and the mentions in the original draft plan to address these important areas of social concern. So turning next to the two additional items adopted after the hearing earlier this month by the Plan Commission as modifications to the city's draft. So in addition to all that was presented related to providing police and homeless services, these were inserted into the sections for the public spaces and well-organized strategies. So for concluding these, commissioners cited concerns raised in the process. The Plan Commission was told these would be routed to departments for review. So this text struck through in red represents initial changes recommended to the first of the action about police presence for public spaces 1.3. If these were to be included in the final document. And this would add to the city's draft plan the new policy of centralized downtown precinct. The only modification to that text shown here is the removal of the word fully from the first line. And that's because during the longer term life of this plan, the appropriate level of staffing may fluctuate depending on the environment and needs of the police department and city. And so the city should maintain some flexibility by not defining the current staffing level as a desired standard. And finally, the other action recommended by the Plan Commission for well-organized 1.5 would be to monitor housing and shelter for low-income residents and residents experiencing homelessness. Again, initial city department feedback is shown in red text, this time underlined. This would be to include a statement about bringing the work that the city and Downtown Spokane Partnership did to coordinate with the different agencies that's suggested here to the Continuum of Care Board as the regionally authorized body. And that additional text would, again, if the council includes the Plan Commission's recommended text, help give this work a focus and recognize the empowered regional entity to coordinate the city's response to the unhoused. So with that summary of public participation and those issues, I'll introduce to you Jeff Arango. He's on the call, the consultant from Framework, who will review the vision and goals and other content in the draft.
Yeah, great.
Jeff?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Nate. Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today. My name is Jeff Arango. I am the Director of Planning of Framework and the project manager for the consultant team. Next slide, please, Nate. So this is a section that is an intro to the what we're calling the plan framework, which I'll go through in a minute. And we believe it's really important in planning documents to communicate to the public, why the plan says what it does and why it recommends what it does, and sort of how that was developed. And the key part of that is obviously the outreach process and all of the great input that we've gotten along the way that Nate just summarized. But there are other factors as well. And like any planning process, there are areas where people generally tend to agree, and there are some areas where people do not, necessarily agree on everything. And we found that to be true through this process. And so the plan has been crafted really to focus on those areas of agreement, and there are lots of areas of agreement, to also focus on people and activity, which really, I think, is the hallmark of a great downtown. As Nate mentioned, there are, existing public spaces that could be, created, programmed to become stronger assets to the downtown, to provide more activities, more economic opportunity. And the last one is a recommendation to test and evaluate ideas, and that can be a great way to kind of get past some of the differences. If you're able to test maybe some improvements to a public space or to a street, it can help really illuminate what the impact of that is and what the benefits are, and help start to maybe move the needle towards implementing some of the bolder actions in the plan. Next slide. And so this is the process diagram for the project. Due to COVID, the timeline has been extended a bit, and we did add some additional outreach, including that third public meeting and the final survey. So the existing conditions work started in mid to late 2019. We had some focus groups and interviews early on, which was really great for us to get oriented and kind of meet some of the key stakeholders. We produced the existing conditions report, which provide a lot of the basis for developing the plan framework and ultimately the goals and strategies. We had a visioning meeting primarily at the Pavilion, which was awesome, back when we could meet in person, and then another one at Wonder Spokane, which was also well attended and a very informative event. And so now, we're sort of at the final draft plan stage, still making some tweaks, but we're now, into the legislative process. You have a recommendation from the Planning Commission and sort of moving through the hearing process towards adoption. Next slide, please. And so the plan framework is a couple of pages in the middle of the document. It's got a dark background, so it's easy to sort of orient yourself to that. And that really forms kind of the structural basis for the plan. It includes a new vision statement that talks about Spokane as the cultural heart of the inland Northwest, as a place people want to live, work, and come recreate and do fun things downtown as visitors. And establishes some high-level goals and strategies that are fleshed out in more detail in the plan, and then are summarized in the action plan with more details about how those can get implemented, including who's responsible, a timeline, a rough estimate of costs, and prioritization. Next slide. And so the framework is really centered around these 5 goals. Again, these are reflected in the public input that we received. So we want to connect it and walkable downtown. And certainly there are places in downtown that are already very connected and walkable, but there are a lot of gaps between those areas. And so we want to kind of create more of a seamless experience. So we have a number of strategies to improve sort of walkability and the experience for pedestrians in downtown. We want to infuse arts, culture, and historic places into pretty much everything we do in downtown. This is really important to the community, and I think really a bright spot for downtown over the last several years. I had the opportunity a couple years ago to attend a major arts event in downtown. I had a really great time, and it was just great to see how many people are really vested in arts and culture in downtown Spokane. The third one, great place to live, work, and play. Again, this addresses things like housing needs, how we can maintain downtown Spokane as kind of the primary regional workplace, and reduce some of the current vacancies that are out there, and then continue to build on the great success that downtown Spokane already has as a place for events and culture and all sorts of recreational opportunities that continue to expand over time. Welcoming, engaging public spaces, and this is looking at a lot of the existing public spaces and how those could be programmed and activated, things that could be done relatively easily and cost effectively that don't require necessarily major capital investments. We have a number of examples in the plan of communities that have had a lot of success with this approach. And so that is that goal. And then the last one, which isn't the most exciting sounding goal, but well-organized downtown is really important. And I think it speaks to the fact that, managing your downtown is never really done. It's an ongoing effort. It requires collaboration. Fortunately, the city and the Downtown Spokane Partnership are already, doing a great job in that regard, but we just wanted to make sure that it was recognized and acknowledged in the plan. And so we have some strategies around that. Next slide, please. And this is the plan framework map. It identifies the different districts in downtown. It identifies priority streets for improvement, priority, what we're calling opportunity sites, which were identified also in the 2008 plan and was definitely an area of success for the last plan. A number of the, and Nate talked about this in the beginning, a number of these opportunity sites have been developed. So there's a number of new ones which are identified in the asterisk in the list on the right. And then there are some that are carrying forward, some that are warranting some further discussion. Our major downtown sites 1 and 2, which are identified as 3 and 4 on the map, Those are subject to the height restrictions in the DTC 100 zone. Those were in the 2008 plan as opportunity sites, but have not been redeveloped since that time. So this has been refreshed and is a key part of the plan framework. Next slide, please. The city staff and DSP staff took the list of actions and created this list of, I think, about 15 actions that we're calling out as priority actions. So these would be the, just as it sounds, the highest priority for implementation. The ones identified in the kind of pinkish colors are either newer actions or ones that warranted some further discussion. So we, again, talked through these with the advisory committee and amongst the different staff groups and with the planning commission. So just wanted to highlight those for you. But again, these 15 actions would be the highest priority for implementation. Next slide. So the DTC 100 zone, as I just mentioned, is an important issue. The city has done a lot of planning around this issue, but no regulatory changes, I believe, have been made. We've identified in the plan certainly the goal of redeveloping those surface parking lots as a priority. But we've also recommended that there be a process to look at again and potentially amend the height restrictions. It was difficult for us to really kind of match the level of effort that had already been put into this issue. And we certainly agree with the goal. And one of the things that we recommended is to do a real estate market study to determine whether the height limit is actually restricting redevelopment, and also in general to understand real estate conditions in downtown to make sure that the zoning is aligned with the fiscal reality of certain building typologies. And one of the issues here, obviously, is as you go taller, the cost of construction gets significantly higher. And so being able to understand, what is feasible, I think is important. So the Planning Commission, I don't believe, made any recommended changes to what we have in the draft on this topic, but it has been discussed extensively among the city and DSP and consultant team. Next slide. And then surface parking, a big issue in most downtowns that we work in. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, there's a lot of surface parking in downtown. And we understand that parking is an important resource for people to be able to access downtown. So we have provided some strategies that would consolidate parking in garages as surface parking facilities are redeveloped. But we do have a number of strategies, and just wanted to call this out to somewhat limit and encourage the redevelopment of surface parking lot with active uses that start to support a number of the other goals like walkability in the downtown. Next slide. And then I think this might be the final slide. This is a new section of the plan. Another thing that we think is really important is to monitor the implementation of the plan and sort of have some metrics to understand if you're being successful. There's a lot of lofty goals in the plan, as there should be, but this would be a way for us to be able to track how successful we are. So we developed a number of metrics, most of them fairly easy to track. That again would be indicators for how this plan is working and be able to assess whether it's achieving the goals that we set out in the document. So that is a new section, and looking forward to seeing how these measures get tracked once the plan is adopted. And I think that's my last slide. I just wanted to again say thank you on behalf of the consultant team for the opportunity to work on the project. It's been a highlight for us, and we look forward to seeing it get adopted and move into the implementation phase. So thank you.
Well, hello, everyone.
Yeah,
thank you, Nate. I'm Andrew Rawls, and I am the DSP staff liaison to the Downtown Plan Update process over the past year and a half. It's been a pleasure to be a part of it. The work that Nate and Jeff have done has really been excellent. The DSP's view on the plan is that it is thorough, it's comprehensive, And it's also, I think, very implementable. I think that's a key feature of this document. It offers a step-by-step process to implement this over time, and I think it really bodes well for a successful document, one that we'll see take shape over the next 10 years. Slide, please. However, there are a couple of areas that we remain having concerns with, and I'll spend the next few minutes discussing primarily the recommended policy regarding policing and crime and social services, and then I'll close with some observations on DTC 100 policy. The policy that you'll see us discussing regarding crime and policing, as well as social services, has been recommended for inclusion by the Plan Commission. It was drafted by Councilmember Kinnear. Thank you, Lori, for your great assistance with that, and the DSP, on behalf of the board, is very favorable to it, and I'm here to advocate for its inclusion. Slide, please. Well, you did see a couple of these call-outs in Nate's slides. I did add to that the extract from the existing conditions report that discusses the focus groups that were held back in September of 2019. And what I'm attempting to depict here is that the public's feedback has actually been consistent over the past year and a half, beginning at the very start with the focus groups observation that homelessness and public safety are the biggest challenges facing downtown, through to the opening survey in November of 2019, with those two issues being the top-ranked priorities for the plan, and then closing with the written commentary in April of this year, where again there were 82 written responses on the necessity to address homelessness and crime in the downtown plan. Again, this is a somewhat different conclusion than what you saw with Nate, but I would add to that in public meeting number 3, there was quite a bit of commentary there about the need to address these two issues. I don't have that quantified, but it was raised quite a number of times in the final public meeting, which was an online meeting. And I will move on to the next slide. Thank you, Nate. As we undertook the process of supporting for very consistently, I would say, the inclusion of policing and social services, a commentary or policy on those issues, we conducted a search of downtown plans from across the Western United States, and found that in 3 cities in the Western U.S. and then one in Canada, that each of those downtown plans had fairly descriptive policy recommendations for each of those downtowns. I'd highlight here in Salt Lake City's second bullet to consider business impacts and social service provider siting decisions. Boise's downtown plan recommends the regulation of panhandling and the implementation of the mayor's 10-year plan to end homelessness. And Olympia directs city agencies to establish a full-time walking foot patrol in their downtown and to coordinate nighttime safety between law enforcement and downtown establishments. These are policies that are fairly directive, and so we did this because what we did here on a number of occasions was that with regard to crime and policing, and also the issue of social services or homelessness, that this downtown should not be prescriptive or directive, that it might limit city agencies' freedom to undertake the policies that best reflect the conditions at the time. And this was our response to that these are practices that are reflected in other downtown plans. Slide, please. And finally, closing with our comments on social services and policing, what you may have noted in the existing conditions report is a very extensive 2-page historical narrative covering a wide range of developments over the past 5 to even 10 years. It is really an excellent write-up, provides quite a bit of context as to how that all came about and the situation that we have currently came about. and our recommendation based on that is to bring this forward into the policy section of the plan. It's a notable absence if 2 pages are spent describing these issues in the existing conditions report, but then there's no policy that responds to it or corresponds to it in the policy section of the plan. We think that doing that would address public demand quite effectively. And if we could move on to the final slide, Nate. Thank you. We think it would be an important addition to the plan and improve its quality and effectiveness. Again, this was language that was drafted by Councilmember Kinnear, and it has been responded to by the applicable agencies, the police department and CHHS, without significant change in the content of the suggested policy. And I wanted to emphasize in this slide that it is grounded in the comprehensive plan, so it's not a significant departure in any way from the comprehensive plan, nor in the work that our agencies are doing currently, but it would address what we understand or perceive to be the demand from the public to directly address these issues. And that concludes my comments on those points. I'll move on to the next slide and offer some observations on the DTC 100 policy. At the Plan Commission meeting now a couple of weeks ago, I did recommend to the Plan Commission that they strengthen and clarify the language, the content in the policy section of the plan on DTC 100. As it stands currently, it is somewhat similar to the observations in the existing conditions report. It describes what has occurred previously, but it doesn't direct a policy on DTC 100. The closest it gets to doing that is to discuss and it states that it should the city should explore performance-based design solutions that enhance the public realm as alternatives specific to each parcel. Our understanding of performance-based design is that it is flexible. It is perhaps more flexible and offers more advantages to a creative development process than the prescriptive policies suggested in what the Plan Commission recommended back in 2018. But on behalf of the DSP board and even on behalf of the owners of those parcels in that area, we don't have a lot of experience with it or understanding of how it would actually be applied to the DTC 100 parcels. So we did request a statement or some guidance or direction on how it would be applied. And in regard to our request that the Plan Commission recommend or proceed with strengthening or clarifying the policy section statement on the DTC 100 policy, they in fact did not go ahead with an approval of that recommendation. They stated their response seemed to be that the language that's in there now already covers what we were requesting. So that's where it stands now, and I think the question for you as our council will be, does this offer enough direction? Should more direction be provided in the plan? And if the answer to that is yes, I think it means then that another policy process will have to be undertaken, and that could be potentially fairly time-consuming. And with that, that concludes my comments. I thank you very much for this time. And again, really admire the work that Nate and Jeff have completed.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew and Jeff. And I'll just kind of wrap up, talk about the public comments. Those are in your study session packet. I believe it's an Exhibit 5 to the staff report. There's about 50 public comments, and mostly in favor or neutral to the plan. There's the topics, main topics mentioned there: open space and parking availability, followed by supporting bicycle pedestrian facility improvements and more to address homeless conditions. So another source of comments there, and then I'd like to just give it back to the council for discussion. So thank you again for your time.
All right, council members, if you have questions or comments, Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everybody for the information and the presentations. Really appreciate it. Just a few thoughts from me. First, regarding the language that was put together between Councilman Kinnear and the Downtown Spokane Partnership, I think that language is really good. I disagree with the idea of removing the word fully, because to me that means that we could have one officer and we just call it good. And I don't think anybody agrees that that's the direction we should go. So if we disagree on what fully means, then perhaps something like the word appropriate, the appropriate staff for the precinct, I think would be okay. But I think we have to acknowledge that we need to have an actual quality level of service for our downtown precinct. Second, the big issue I have probably in here is the lack of clarity around eliminating that DTC 100 barrier to infill development. We hear all the time, housing should go downtown, it should go downtown, it should go downtown. This has been an opportunity since, as was pointed out, since 2008. Nothing has happened yet. I don't think kicking the can down the road another 5 or 10 years of more studies and thinking and tweaking is going to actually get us anywhere. We need to see that development occur, and that's a really good opportunity for that to happen. And so I think some clarity around that really should be in here. The Plan Commission unanimously approved this in 2018. There's no reason we couldn't act on this really quickly and hopefully see some downtown housing development occur in that area. I think that we're ripe for that. And then lastly, small but I think important is LWP 5.3. I would just love to see us eliminate the word requirements from there. There's really no other place in the document where we are really trying to mandate anything. I mean, there's some where we alluded to previous mandates, but not a whole lot that's new. And this is one where we're asking for either requirements, mandates, or incentives for some different roofing material downtown. And again, you start placing these obstacles in the way, and it's just one more barrier to the development that we need to see happening. And so I would remove requirements and focus on incentivizing that different material if that is the direction that we want to go. And again, that's under LWP 5.3. Other than that, nothing else that's major. I mean, I think we could strengthen some of the language about public safety, but I think the compromise language that's been put together is pretty good. So I'll leave it at that.
Other council members? All right. I have a question, Nate. It sounds to me like there are proposals to change the language as currently written. Is that a fair assessment that people are asking council to consider language changes at this point post Planning Commission?
Yes, so we have some initial feedback from departments that's indicating that if the Plan Commission recommended additions are adopted into the final document, these are some changes to that text that would help improve that language for the functionality of our departments.
Okay. I had a couple questions, just understanding. So one, I saw the cultural trail, which we've had presentations on. The graphic seems to be that the majority of it is on Riverside Avenue, at least between Monroe and Division. And I think that's what Spokane Arts wanted, but there was another alternative. But I'm just wondering, is there any reason why that Riverside is not actually put in the words? I mean, is there any problem doing that since the graph does it? I just don't want people 5 years from now to go, oh, which street are we doing it on? So just a question about that.
I don't see any problem adding that clarification if that's something that's desired. I think that's
Okay.
There should be some consistency between the text and the graphic, although it is a conceptual level document, so
Okay.
some flexibility is okay too.
Okay. Also, you've had some emails from Councilmember Kinnear and myself. The Main Street two-way vision planning that was done between or east of Washington on Main. That doesn't seem, I'm curious of why that isn't incorporated or mentioned in the plan. And I don't want anyone to think that that has been repudiated, or is it accepted, or I'm just wondering what the conversation was about, because a lot of work's been done on that, and I know we're looking at what are the next steps. So again, I'm just sensitive. If it doesn't show up in the plan, does it look like we're saying, no, we're not doing that? Or what's the intent that's trying to be conveyed?
Yeah, I think the only intent is to acknowledge that work was done and kind of track it. We do have it listed as a past accomplishment in the introduction of the plan. Thinking about the things that have happened in the last 10, 15 years and listing it as something that occurred in 2017, and all of that work is still forthcoming, I understand, and so we have. I think, as I mentioned in some correspondence, there was, there's a high degree of conformity between that, the alternative that was selected and the policies of this plan, but it wasn't incorporated, as a component per se, or to be, sort of rubber stamped by this process as well.
Okay. All right, and then this is a really technical one, but in the performance measures, there's a mention of net parking revenues going to a parking benefit investment area, and I just didn't see that PBIA in the plan at all. So I was wondering why we were putting that in the measurement when it seems like maybe the measurement's broader of how many parking meter revenues are diverted to improvements downtown as opposed to some new entity that's not discussed. So I don't know if that's just a leftover orphan from another conversation or is really meant to be in there as a separate entity there.
Yeah, I think the conversation was, as I recall, was between, kind of communicating to the public whether this should be something that benefits the smaller parking benefit area or the larger meter zone area, which is, or will be the paid parking zone as the parking study is implemented. So it's just a way to focus those investments to that smaller area.
Okay. But I guess is part of the plan to create another entity or not? Or is that just shorthand for what you just said of like, no, focus it in the smaller area as opposed to the entire parking area?
No, it was really a suggestion to, as the consultant was drafting the document, to be clear about whether it was what geographic area it was,
Okay.
not to create a new entity.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, and then I just have two comments. Interesting that Councilmember Cathcart and I were both going to comment on the same provisions. But one is on the LWP 5.3 on the buildings. A little bit different than Councilmember Cathcart. I was hoping that we would incorporate and call out the Washington Clean Building Act, because there are some state law requirements for energy efficiency, and I just thought we should call out, not that the city was mandating it, but that we would support building owners in helping them comply with the state thing. So I had that comment. And then the Riverfront Park shade protections on those two lots. I'm just a comment. I think when we've surveyed the public, it's been like 80% of the people want to keep the 100-foot, similar to River Park Square Mall, it's kind of the same kind of thing. And there's so many other downtown open surface lots where you could build great housing with great views. And so I'm just so loath to go against 80% of the population surveyed.
Those are owned by Diamond, Council President.
Yeah. So that's, anyway, so I'm just putting that out there. I totally agree those should be developed, but I think they should be developed within what the community members want, which is to keep shade out of the park, because there's, again, so many other lots around town, and they're not all Diamond lots. There's one right up on Spokane Falls Boulevard and Division, that old auto service place. That's a great spot, I think. So, but anyway, that's just a comment. But I will stop and then defer to Councilmember Kinnear. Oh, we can't hear you though.
Sorry.
Yep.
Here I am. I'm sitting in Councilmember Wilkerson's seat because I lost my connection.
Okay.
But I wanted to comment back on the vision study for Maine. And I know you've moved on from there, but I haven't been connected for 5 minutes. So I wanted to say, and I don't know if you did say this already, Council President, but we have an opportunity for funding through the state because we have our Senate Majority Leader very interested in this. If we include the study in an appendix, it is going to give us a better chance to get some funding for this. And that is why I'm pushing to get it included. So that is my ask. I think we have a really good shot at getting money for this. So, and Nate, I know it's mentioned, but for our state folks, it's got to be painfully obvious that it's there. They can't have to infer anything. They want details and they want it front and center. So that's my ask.
Great. Thanks. Other comments, council members? Yeah, I had 3 kind of asks like that. One was, we've been talking about the downtown bid and expanding its boundaries into the entire downtown. I think that comes under well-organized downtown. Secondly, we've talked about moving a whole new parking process of using kiosks instead of meters and really increasing pay by phone. And then the third is, I know we're having this conversation, but again, as we're looking at which is getting downtown bathrooms that are available to the public and water fill-up stations. So those are just things that have really become hot topics in the middle of this long, super involved process. So just throwing that out there for people to know. All right. I'm not seeing anything else. Councilmember Mum.
President.
Yeah.
Hi. I've been observing from afar, but I'm back in, and I may have missed that. I just had a question on the measurement tools. Are we using the nationally recognized walk score at all as a measurement tool? Nathan?
I don't believe so. We do have a measure that's related to kind of a local survey, but I don't believe we have the walk score.
I would suggest that is used by commercial developers, housing developers. It's on most Zillow pages, and downtown actually has a really good one. It's above 90. And I see some heads nodding, but I think we can promote that. And if we want to talk about walkability, I think that would be an important goal, and that could help us when we're measuring where do we need to fill in these gaps for sidewalks and connectivity. And so I just wanted to add that in.
Great. Councilmember Stratton.
I just have a question. So we had DSP talking about, they did their presentation. So where do we go now with the wording for crime and policing services and keeping the word in? I mean, how does that all mesh together at the end? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think from where I sit, as I understand it, is we can amend the language that has been presented to us. You know, we have to be somewhat careful because there's been a lot of process and people have commented on things, but we can amend the language. So we'll have to, not today because this isn't a meeting, but we would basically, when we're talking about the resolution to adopt the downtown plan, if there's language changes we have, we need to make a motion to amend what we're adopting, and hopefully we'll work that out before the night that we're actually doing it so that we can have a really nice, clean copy. So we might have another vote type session at a study session where there's probably I don't know, there might be 10 or so amendments that I've heard people talk about, and whether they get 4 votes or not. And so we'll have a chance. Today is not the day we're deciding that.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just wondering how that all kind of fits.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'll just comment about that because you've been on the council longer than me, but for 5 years I've been on it, and it's a little unclear to me when council is supposed to weigh in with those kind of things, because when it comes after it comes through planning commission, people are like, well, planning commission's already. We're like, yeah, but we didn't get to say this is what we want planning commission to look at or not. We obviously can participate in community meetings, but that's not really in our council role. And so I'm hoping the next one of these that we do, on the front end, we get a little more explicit about when we should weigh in as a council on these things, so that we get more perhaps robust public comment in response to how we would change it. And so just feedback for planning staff. I don't think we're clear on it. I certainly haven't been. So apologies to the degree that we might have a bunch of changes, but we have to get more clear. And I think part of that is we have term limits and people are only here so long, and staff is here for years and they know exactly how it should work from their perspective. And we just don't always understand. So we'll just keep working through that. Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, I guess just a question. I mean, do we, as a legislative body, not have a duty and responsibility to make amendments, even if it is at the very end, if we see something that's deficient or needs to be changed? And so even if it's outside of the planning commission process or something else, I just feel like we have a duty to consider amendments like that.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And that's been the challenge, is like, oh no, I can't let that go through when we can change it. I think the piece that I want to figure out how we do better, though, is if it's something like that where you're like, no way do I want that to go through. When's the organized space earlier in the process that we have that conversation, so that we do that before the planning commission looks at it? And Councilmember Mumm, who's an expert on this, will enlighten us. But to be clear, it is not always clear to council members where that is. But Councilmember Mumm, help us out.
So we have set up a framework that COVID exploded that we can return to now, which is where we meet quarterly with our plan commission and we go through the work plan with them. We also have a fabulous liaison in Councilmember Kinnear who monitors this along with her staff. And I do have a few ideas I'll talk to Councilmember Kinnear about. But you're right, there needs to be more give and take. Sometimes these meetings that we would have would be at Dolly's restaurant because we can't all get together. But there is a process for this. Of course, yes, we do have the authority to do it, but there are reasons why we do want to work hand in hand with the Plan Commission and our other advisory bodies when we are doing, like you said, Council President, a major change, because often they've considered it. And we have 10 fabulous volunteers who are advising us, and it's incumbent on us to go back to them and say, hey, we're thinking about this major change. And they say, oh, yeah, we thought about it too. Here was the testimony we had, and staff can help. So there is a process in place. I think we just haven't been able to do it for the last couple of years. And I see Councilmember Kinnear also has her hand raised. Councilmember
Kinnear.
I would actually echo Councilmember Mumm, and I would also say there is a fine line between interfering with the Plan Commission process. So I don't want to interfere with their deliberation or how their thought process is going and what they're thinking. And at the same time, we want to make our voice heard. So we're going to have to strike a happy medium. And I will work with Councilmember Mumm so we can figure something out and bring it before council.
And the other thing I'll say is that, and again, I'm just picking this up over time, but if we make small changes, then generally we just make those changes on the dais and do that. If it's bigger changes, and we don't know yet because we haven't really had that conversation of are there 4 votes for lots of changes, then we always have the option to send it back to Planning Commission. So we can do that. We can say, you know what? We changed several things, and we want to hear Planning Commission. Do you have any more comments about it? Because they may, with their expertise and experience, say, yeah, you say you want to get to that result, and you gave us that language, and obviously, council, you get to do it. But think about this. So we can do that, and there's nothing, they have a busy schedule, but I think what we're talking about would not be a big scope kind of thing, and since they've already done it, so they could probably get to it pretty quickly. So I think what will happen is we'll have a meeting where we have proposed amendments, hopefully ahead of time in writing. We can vote, we can discuss, vote on them, and then if it's our judgment of at least 4 people that we should send it back to Planning Commission for another quick look and back, we can do that. So anyway, all right. Well, so the good news, Nate and Jeff and Lewis and anyone else from Jeff, is you have our attention and great interest. So that's awesome. So that's good. So thanks for this. My office will be back in touch with you on how best to move forward. But I think we've used more time than we planned today. It was well used, so I appreciate that. We're going to move to Mr. Eric Paulson on the state legislative session recap. We always wish like we could do it on the week after while it's all fresh in our minds, but we really did want to come back to council with a summary of highlights, probably the most successful legislative session we've participated in as a city in recent memory. Great team, great results. And so Eric is going to walk us through a PowerPoint of some of the highlights and field questions. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you. And we have Nick Federici, who's also here, one of our 2-person lobby team superheroes. Good to see you, Nick. It looks like you can tell the session got over. You got a haircut. It's like you had time to get a haircut.
Yeah, you look like a new man.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Council President. And please, everybody, especially on the legislative team, feel free to chime in. I thought because we have some others from the public and media watching, just a quick word about the structure of our legislative team. As the legislative and policy-making branch of city government, the council is charged with developing and implementing our state agenda, and this role is defined by city ordinance. The makeup of our legislative team is Councilmember Mumm, who chairs the group, you, Council President Beggs, Council Member Burke. They are the voting members proper of this group, but I've found we've never actually taken an issue to a vote because they really strive for consensus, and when there's a controversial issue, they're bringing it to study session and to committees for formal approval. So I think we've really found our sweet spot in that regard. Council and administration staff also work on the committee. We've gotten extraordinary help this session in particular from our new policy initiative managers. So many thanks to them. And of course, our capable lobbyists, Nick Federici and Luke Esser. Luke, by the way, if you're out there, he's recovering from very serious surgery, so couldn't be with us today, but we are thinking of you, my friend, and wishing you well. And the fundamental purpose of this group is to advocate for the city and its people and businesses and influence decisions in the legislature and in Congress the best we can. And the key to all that is really our partnerships with other electeds, especially our 3rd District legislators who are all in very powerful leadership roles in Olympia. And I think this is where I'm proud to say we really excel. So any questions or comments about this process or the structure before we get into the session? I don't see anybody. Okay, well, we've talked about this many times, but 2021 was very remarkable for several reasons. First of all, for the first time in history, proceedings were held virtually because of COVID. National events and the desire for fewer bills led to a much greater focus, I think, from legislators on big issues like police reform, racial equity, social equity, and a very desperate need for more housing, childcare, and economic issues. So the virtual testimony in this setting is really what I think gave the city of Spokane a newfound ability to influence legislative outcomes. We firmly established ourselves as a knowledgeable resource to the legislature and dozens of issues. And Council President, you were particularly busy testifying on dozens of bills in your area of interest, but also Council Member Kinnear. I think that was the first time you testified in Olympia. You were fabulous. Council Members Mumm and Burke were also very active. And I think at the end of the day, if there's one word to describe the session as a whole, it would be consequential. No matter what your political leanings, it was very consequential on police reform, housing, climate, taxes, child care, funding for community projects. And with Council President, with your permission, I sent out a document yesterday with a lot of the issues that we supported and how they turned out, but there's also a bigger story of things that happened that made this session unique. And so I wanted to turn to Nick briefly, who is our expert on housing and criminal justice issues, to go over some of the big stuff that happened in that space, because that was really where the city perhaps had our biggest impact, a lot of interest around those issues now. So if I can turn it over to you, Nick, and then maybe we can go down the list of other things that we accomplished before you have to move on to your next presenter. Does that work? And any comments before we move on? Okay. Nick, take it away. I don't know what you're going to say yet, so, make it good.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, members of the council, for having our presentation today. As Eric said, this was a bizarre session, as you guys have had to do. The Zoom reality was a whole new thing. Many legislators never set foot in Olympia, and most advocates, and I think all advocates and members of the public didn't set foot in Olympia. The Capitol was a no-fly zone, right, for anybody who wasn't an elected official or key staff. I think that it had, as Eric pointed out, a unique democratizing effect that I hope they retain in future years, which allowed folks both socioeconomically as well as geographically more diversity of input rather than just the usual suspects to be able to provide the input. And again, my gratitude to all the council and staff members who were very active in this legislative session on various issues of import to the city and your constituents. I'll start very briefly, and Council Chair, you're the expert on this, and so please feel free to pull me up short on any of this. But the public safety, in particular, police accountability, was a major issue of importance. We just came past the year anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and I think that the events of last spring and summer really drove the legislature to try to improve racial equity and accountability in the way that that policies are set for police departments across the state. As a result, legislation on use of force, on investigation audits, on investigation of law enforcement for potential criminal conduct, had a number of different pieces of legislation. House Bill 1054, which bans chokeholds and some other methods of restraint, requiring the Brady list to be public, allowing audits to move forward and to be public of police use of force issues, and to remove the bar on removing the felony bar in Senate Bill 5263 were all major changes in use of force and police accountability policy that really put, I think, Washington, if not ahead of the rest of the country, on par with other states that have taken this very seriously and made a number of changes to police accountability and police reform. In addition, the housing and homelessness issues were foremost in the legislature's mind, particularly given the eviction moratorium and the and the relative lack of affordable housing that was sort of frozen in place by the moratorium and by the pandemic. A lot of money and a lot of new policy around affordable housing and homelessness. In particular, historically high levels in the Housing Trust Fund for acquiring or preserving or creating new affordable housing across the state. Part of that driven by House Bill 1277 from Spokane's own Representative Ormsby, which was a huge infusion of funds for state-level rental assistance on top of the more than $1 billion that the state used from federal ARPA and other funds for rental assistance to keep people in their homes and prevent evictions there so that people's lives continue to be stabilized while in the pandemic. The governor's eviction moratorium is scheduled to end on June 30th, but it's possible that something will be extended beyond that. The funding for rental assistance, as I said, is over $1 billion. That's money that goes direct to landlords to ensure that they retain folks in their units and that folks who have been unable to pay their rent don't get evicted. In addition, there was new processes put in place around evictions that give tenants the requirement to go through dispute or require the process to go through dispute resolution before before evictions can happen, and provide a right to counsel for tenants in eviction action. Those are both huge things that really level the playing field for tenants vis-a-vis landlords in that conversation. And then House Bill 1236, which passed, which provides statewide a good cause requirement for landlords if they're going to evict tenants. All of this aimed very much at preventing homelessness, as well as providing the financial tools and the authority to local jurisdictions to take action around homelessness. Most of the funds need to be applied for through the Department of Commerce, and I know that there are a lot of thoughts about how to go about doing that. And just one piece of policy to highlight in that is acquisition and rapid housing for folks. Some jurisdictions and the state have already done a little bit of this, buying up properties that have been vacant or buying up properties that are able to be used for housing that are like motels and hotels, and putting those in place as transitional housing for folks off the street is a tool that the legislature provided some direct funding for that I know many jurisdictions are looking at using productively to combat homelessness and stabilize the housing in their local jurisdictions. And again, those funds are things that local jurisdictions or local nonprofits can apply for through the Department of Commerce. So those are the big things in those areas. Just to underscore what Eric said about the Fair Start Act, which provides a substantial infusion of funding for childcare and really stabilizes that system. There's still a lot of gaps and need for additional funding and policy changes there, but this was a major step forward. The federal funds made all of this possible, frankly. The legislature did some things in the revenue area, both passing a capital gains tax as well as a working families tax credit to provide money back to lower income families that qualify for the earned income tax credit. One of the first ever sort of tax stabilization moves for lower income families as opposed to doing it on the business side. So some major steps forward there in terms of revenue policy. Again, as Eric said, love it or hate it, it certainly was a watershed year. And then I'll close with overview of low carbon fuel standard, which sets new environmental standards for transportation fuels, and the Climate Commitment Act that put in place a carbon cap and invest tax process in place to bring in revenues, as well as to make some major changes and limitations in carbon emissions in Washington State to help with the combating climate change. Those last two, the Low Carbon Fuel Standards and Climate Commitment Act, were tied to a transportation revenue package in the legislature And so neither one of them goes into effect until a transportation package goes into place, except for the fact that the governor vetoed those ties to a transportation package. And it sounds like the legislature or others are going to litigate that to see whether or not the governor's vetoes were appropriate. Again, even our own Senate Majority Leader from Spokane, Senator Billig, spoke rather sharply about the governor's vetoes and concerns about governor's overreach of authority there. So those things may or may not be tied to a transportation package. The likely scenario is that the legislature reconvenes sometime this fall, probably whenever the federal government, if and when they put together an additional infrastructure package that has funds for state and local governments. The legislature would likely reconvene to deal with the transportation revenue issue as well as the distribution of those funds from the federal government.
Hey, and Council President, oh, that's awesome. And we could go on a long time. Council President, I just thought, I'd be remiss in not pointing out that a lot of this legislation requires a lot of work from us going forward, whether it be figuring out, there's new municipal financing tools like tax increment financing, new changes to expectations under the Growth Management Act that will impact the city. And probably a great example of the work that we have cut out for us has to deal with one of our highest priority bills, which was House Bill 1155, related to emergency communications. It modifies requirements related to interlocal agreements for the emergency communication systems and facilities local sales and use tax. And I know the city's aim was to establish a true regional system that improves that service and enhances public safety. I know that our lobbyist, Luke Esser, who helped us navigate that very difficult political and policy process, can't be with us, but wanted to give a shout out to him for accomplishing a very controversial piece of legislation.
And it put him in the hospital.
Yeah, put him squarely into the intensive care unit. And
did you have to call 911 to do it?
Yeah. But I wasn't sure if any council members, especially on the legislative team, but anybody wants to chime in, things that were important to you personally that you wanted to raise, or things that you're particularly proud of. I know we're short on time, but this was, these are really your victories more than anyone. So, yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Mumm.
Candace.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in because this has been an evolution of rebuilding a strong policy body and legislative, integration. The city of Spokane has not seen this in several decades. We've had lots of people who made good attempts, but this was a coordinated working effort at all levels of government. And Spokane is finally at the table acting like the second largest city in the state and a very large city in the Northwest. And we are exactly where we need to be. And I want to support all the efforts that have been made, and our time has come. And I want to say, as time marches on for this, to me, the most important change that happened this year was the fact that we had electronic remote access to our legislators. It leveled the playing field. The West Side, and those of us who've gone over year after year, I mean, I cannot tell you how important this was. And I think the legislators actually liked it. I think they were surprised at how many new voices came to the table. And I know it was a shift for the lobbyists because it's always been done differently in the halls. And Eric, you've been there. But we have to keep this. We absolutely have to keep this ability to have remote testimony and set up appointments remotely, because we will lose the ground that we have gained. So I really hope that that's part of our message, not just to the lawmakers that we work with closely here, but to the whole legislature. And I don't know how we do that. Maybe that's a formal thank you letter, Eric, from Spokane to the bodies of the Senate and the House. This really was an equity piece. And I'm so thankful for it. And I think we showed it made a difference.
Yeah. Councilmember Wilkerson.
I'm just going to quickly jump in and thank our leaders for making Juneteenth a state holiday. I had the opportunity to testify, so that was my first time also, but it was important that inclusion from people from all over the state. So a big shout out to that, and Washington continues to be a leader.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that to get resources from the legislature, you have to invest resources to do it. And so this was Eric's second session, because we had hired him 2 years ago, first of all, just on a more of a temporary basis, and then now it's a permanent position. And you could see the difference from one session to the second session and how he got us organized as both council members and then staff, and we had policy staff that did it, and we had way better coordination with the administration, thanks to Eric. And then we, again, have really first-class lobbyists, and probably we should be paying them more, but we did invest in really the A-team on that. And that resulted in just millions and millions of dollars of impact for us in Spokane, and policy improvements, and got us out of the dilemma of trying to lead always and pass things locally when it really should be statewide. On police matters, so much has changed statewide. And one thing I just wanted to highlight that hasn't gotten any media attention really, but there's a bill out there, 1310, which is the de-escalation bill. That is probably the most important bill that passed and just hasn't, because it defines what de-escalation is and it requires it. And I tell people it is the approach you hope police will take when they pull over your child or family member, which is, hey, just slow it down. If people are acting up, create some space and distance. Don't be in a hurry. Don't go to force, particularly deadly force, until you absolutely have to. And that is really the heart of the cultural change that we're looking at. And police often follow that, but this mandates it. So it becomes uniform in our city and throughout the state. So I just wanted to raise the importance of investing in staff and outside vendors to get us where we want to go, because Spokane really, as the second largest city and one with, I call it, some Midwestern values on the left coast of Washington or of the country, we really can lead on all these things in a way that's sensible and can be adopted anywhere. So my big thanks to everybody involved in it and our legislators, and just, we're now starting to apply this to our federal legislative agenda, and next year's state legislature. We're just going to be better and better. So good job, everyone. Thank you. And we'll move on briefly. We have two matters to cover super quickly. I'm going to skip down to the impact fees ordinance first for two reasons. One, it's smaller. Secondly, I'm getting some information from our policy director, Brian McClatchy, that it's going to have to go through the Planning Commission or the Plan Commission before we do anything. But essentially, just as a refresher for people, several years ago, we had $55 million of strategic investments to make, and we agreed to invest $1 million in two of our public development authorities, half of it to the Northeast, half of it to the West Plains, for the purpose of allowing them to give incentives of transportation impact fee waivers. And so you can't just give people a waiver, you have to backfill those dollars. And so this $1 million was meant to backfill dollars for projects. And we kind of got that on the books, and that money is set aside. It's simply sitting there. That's its purpose that we agreed to long ago. But we heard that the criteria needs to be objective, and currently it's not. And so we had to come up with an objective criteria, which the resolution that we passed out has that objective criteria that's there. It's been shared with the executive directors of both PDAs, and we've gotten feedback. And essentially, it allows someone to get up to 100% waiver of their impact fees, but it gives them 300 points of opportunity, so they can get those 100%, 3 different ways. So it makes it easier to do that. So that's a spreadsheet that works, but rather than put it on our agenda, I think it might already be on our legislative agenda. It looks like, unless we prevail in a different argument, it's going to have to go to Plan Commission. But if anyone has things, yeah, Councilmember Cathcart.
Yeah, just one thought. Rather than just limit it to West Plains and NEPDA, I wonder if state law would allow us to expand this to cover disadvantaged census tracts as well, to remove the fees in those areas, since we need to see more development taking place there.
So we can find that out. I can't imagine that it would be a legal barrier. It would just be a different than the original agreement. But with the new council, it's a new mayor, we could do that. But there is something to that, and a little bit of feedback that I've gotten from the executive directors was, hey, we've been kind of counting on this. We've been kind of marketing it out there. And so they're a little like, hey, give us the money. So it's just but that's a political decision. But we'll find out legally so that we can be clear about it. Councilmember Mumm.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're doing a fiscal analysis on this each time, because, if there's jobs that are above or at, the working wage level, or other benefits of investment that they're putting in, then we can make that calculus. I never like fully free. I always like someone having skin in the game. And I like it as a credit where they spend the money and then they come to us. So it's not, we don't front the money necessarily. So so we know the work gets done. There's just some things in there. I want to take a closer look at it. Is it in the system? Because I was looking for it and didn't see it.
Well, Hannah Lee, did you distribute that or not? Or was it?
I might have missed it.
Yep. Yeah, it's in the email on today's study session. So
it's on today's. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a quick look on that. But I want to make sure that we're doing an individual analysis on each of these things so we know what we're getting for the trade-off of them not paying it. Because what happens when they don't pay the impact fees, the rest of us pick it up. It's not like those costs go away. There's no free lunch.
Well, just to clarify, so the way this works is, as everyone knows, and I'm still learning, when they get their project gets assessed, they get charged to impact fees. So what this does is it simply gives them a waiver. So they're not, if they meet the criteria of enough family wage jobs and all the checklist, which you'll see what the checklist is, then they don't have to pay it. But this fund that we've created, that would go and pay. So the impact fees get paid. It just comes out of this reserve fund that we had accumulated and not them. But that's, again, it's been
to my point. Other people are paying for their impacts, which happen down the road where we have to put a light in or a roundabout or other infrastructure to support their development. There's we're paying for it. We're subsidizing it, their impacts that other businesses have had to pay the fees. So that's I'm just making that point.
No, it is. But like I said, this money was, well, I guess the point that I'm making is the actual traffic impact fee fund doesn't have a deficit because of this. It just comes from this other reserve fund that could be spent on anything. So, yeah. So it sounds like we might take a little more look at that, but that was the agreement a few years ago. The farther we get away from it, with the newer people that are involved, it becomes harder. But I will just put out there that the PDA executive directors felt like they had this money as incentive to do their job. So you'll hear that. But then the other piece was we circulated a first draft resolution on American Recovery Plan process. We have $40.5 million in the bank right now, and we're going to get another $40.5 million next May. Plus, there's all sorts of rental assistance and other assistance. The school district's getting $70 million over 2 years. The county's getting over $100 million. Spokane Valley is getting $22 million. So this resolution is the first stab at trying to come up with a process to organize all the things that people think it would be great to do. I heard from city administrator today that the mayor has some comments for it. I told them, send them to us. If you have comments, I already have comments, even though I think I'm the sponsor. But if you have comments, send them to Brian McClatchy. We are looking to try to get this in place on June 7th. There are several time-sensitive projects that we kind of need to get money out the door right away on. The pools is one, and there's some things like that. So, but basically, if you look at it, or if you're watching, there's 4 different categories that we're looking at, and we're calling them replenish. So looking at where the city lost revenues, and then not giving it to those departments, but asking people to propose projects that are responsive. So the parks lost money, so that's why we're looking at swimming and replacing playground equipment. You know, traffic calming lost money when the school radar cameras. So we're looking at how can we put money out there quickly to do traffic calming. So that's replenished. Then there's a reach out section, which is more partnering with other organizations that we do already partner with, like Spokane Arts or the COPS program, things like that, who are doing good work for our residents, kind of quasi-city services. And then there's the relief. So what gaps are there for businesses or individuals that aren't being helped in other ways? And then there's kind of a resiliency, long-term strategic investments. So those are the 4 categories, and we're going to try to get some money out the door in the near future and then come back at other times. But all the categories can be proposed at any time, and I believe the administration are looking at it as well. The committee is the mayor and council members Wilkerson, Stratton, and myself, which is essentially a redo of the CARES Act work group, and then we'll bring those proposals to council. But council, if you have your ideas, send them. Really, Brian McClatchy is the keeper of projects, and in Teams, there's a spreadsheet that has a lot of information on things that have been proposed. Councilmember Mumm.
I'm wondering if we could maybe look at a new area that we haven't looked at in the past for the city, and that would be maybe leveraging it with some state or federal dollars to do a 2 to 3 year pilot on early learning and pre-kindergarten preparation. This has been done in San Antonio effectively, and in other areas there's data to support this. It has tremendous economic and social impacts down the road, and it's probably not right here for ARP funds, but it makes a lot of sense for our community, and we could possibly leverage those funds to put that under Department of Commerce. And maybe others have already talked about this, but I just want to put that out there. This could be the time to do it.
It's great. And that is on the list in a prominent fashion, really to partner with the school district to do that for a couple of years. And then by the end of the 2 years or so, the state and the legislature created a fund for early childhood. They haven't funded it yet, but that's the hope. So yeah, right on. That's in there. Council members and staff, there's a pretty good spreadsheet that's working, and it's kind of cross-referenced and things like that. It's in the Teams database that we're still, some of us, learning to use, but it's there. So
that spreadsheet could get, even just a draft. I would love to be a part of that.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so there'll be a lot more conversation about that, but just wanted to get that out there. We'll probably vote on that on June 7th, the resolution with the structure. And unless there's anything else for the good of the order, several of us have a health district meeting to go to. So with that, we're adjourned. Again, reminder, if you're watching us, we don't have a meeting on Monday, but we'll be back next Thursday at 11 o'clock. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, everyone. Take care, and if you can, take care of somebody else.